Number 1. It began unprepared, with rifles from 1903, tanks from 1918, and an army smaller than Portugal's. The 7th of December, 1941. America entered World War II with 174,000 men under arms and weapons designed for the last war. 4 years later, it fielded 12 million troops, armed with the most advanced arsenal the world had ever seen. Number 2. The M1 Garand was the first semi-automatic rifle issued as standard to any army. Every pull of the trigger fired a round, no bolt to cycle. 8 rounds loaded in a clip. American infantrymen could fire 40 to 50 aimed rounds per minute. German soldiers with K9 8K bolt-action rifles managed 15. Number 3. General George S. Patton called the M1 Garand the greatest battle implement ever devised. After the war, German generals agreed. They testified that American rifle firepower was overwhelming. A single American squad could outshoot an entire German platoon at close range. Number 4. The M1 Garand had one distinctive feature every veteran remembered. When the last round was fired, the empty 8-round clip ejected with a loud metallic ping. Soldiers debated whether this helped or hurt. Some claimed enemy soldiers heard the ping and attacked during the reload. Veterans said this was myth. Combat was too loud to hear individual rifle pings. Number 5. Over 5.4 million M1 Garands were produced between 1936 and 1957. The rifle was designed by Canadian-born John Garand, who worked at Springfield Armory for 34 years. He received no royalties for his design. It was government work. After the war, Congress voted him a $100,000 bonus, about $1.5 million today. He died in 1974 at age 86. Number 6. The M1 carbine was not a shortened Garand. It was a completely different weapon, lighter, shorter ranged, semi-automatic, firing a pistol-caliber cartridge. It was designed for officers, vehicle crews, and support troops who needed a weapon but wouldn't engage in sustained rifle combat. Over 6.1 million were produced, making it the most produced American small arm of the war. Number 7. Paratroopers loved the M1 carbine because it weighed only 5.5 pounds compared to the Garand's 9.5 pounds. Sergeant Jake McNeice of the 101st Airborne carried one during the D-Day jump. His chute failed to open properly and he hit the ground at high speed. The carbine absorbed the impact and shattered. McNeice suffered a broken rib. The rifle saved his life by distributing the landing force. Number 8. The M1000 918 Browning automatic rifle, the BAR, was a 20-pound monster that fired 30-0, 6 rounds at 550 rounds per minute. Each infantry squad had one. The bar gunner provided suppressive fire while riflemen maneuvered. It was heavy, kicked like a mule, and overheated quickly. Soldiers who carried it developed permanent shoulder bruises. They carried it anyway. Number 9. Private First Class Leonard Lamel carried a BAR during the Ranger assault on Pointe du Hoc on D-Day. After scaling the cliff under fire, he and Sergeant Jack Kuhn discovered 5 155mm guns, the artillery pieces that could destroy the D-Day landing fleet, hidden in an orchard a kilometre inland. They had thermite grenades. They destroyed the guns' traversing mechanisms, rendering them useless. Lamel survived the war and died in 2011 at age 91. Number 10. The Browning. 30 caliber M1000 919 machine gun was John Browning's design from 1919. It was air-cooled, belt-fed, and fired 400 to 600 rounds per minute. Every infantry company had several. They were mounted on vehicles, tanks, and aircraft. The M1000 919 served from World War I through Vietnam, 50 years of continuous service. Number 11. The Browning. 50 caliber M2 machine gun, designed in 1933, is still in service in 2024, 91 years later. It fires half-inch diameter bullets at 2,900 feet per second with a range of 6,800 yards. The M2 could penetrate light armor, shoot down aircraft, and suppress enemy positions from a mile away. It was mounted on everything: tanks, jeeps, half-tracks, bombers, and tripods. Number 12. Staff Sergeant Maynard Harrison Snuffy Smith manned a 50 caliber machine gun in the ball turret of a B-17 over France on the 1st of May 1943. When the bomber was hit by fighters and caught fire, Smith extinguished the flames, threw burning ammunition out of the aircraft, and provided first aid to wounded crew while continuing to fire at attacking fighters. The aircraft made it back to England. Smith received the Medal of Honor. He survived the war and died in 1984 at age 73. Number 13. John Moses Browning designed the M1911 45 caliber pistol, the M1918 BAR, the M1919 machine gun, and the M2 50 caliber machine gun. 4 of America's most important weapons came from one designer. Browning died of a heart attack in 1926 at his workbench in Belgium while designing a 9mm pistol. He was 71 and still working. Number 14. The M1911 45 pistol served as the U.S. military sidearm from 1911 to 1985, 74 years. Over 2.7 million were produced during World War II alone. The 45 ACP round was subsonic, heavy, and stopped targets with one shot. Marines in the Pacific preferred it to rifles in jungle fighting. Navy SEALs still carry modernized M1911S today. Number 15. The M1 Thompson submachine gun, the Tommy gun, was designed in 1918, too late for World War I. Gangsters made it famous in the 1920 seconds. The military adopted it reluctantly in 1938. By 1942, every paratrooper, ranger, and marine assault unit wanted one. It fired 45 caliber rounds at 700 rounds per minute and weighed 10.5 pounds. It was expensive, $200 per gun, equivalent to $3,600 today. Number 16. Sergeant John Basilone used 2 30 caliber machine guns and a pistol to hold off 3,000 Japanese soldiers at Guadalcanal on October 24–25, 1942. For 15 hours, he fired until the barrels glowed red, burned his hands carrying hot barrels to swap them, and continued firing. He killed at least 38 Japanese soldiers. He received the Medal of Honor, was sent home for war bond tours, and requested to return to combat. He was killed on Iwo Jima on the 19th of February, 1945, the first day of the invasion. Number 17. The M3 grease gun replaced the Thompson in 1943. It was stamped steel, not machined, crude, but effective. It cost $20 to produce compared to the Thompson's $200. It fired 450 rounds per minute and never jammed. Tank crews loved it because it was compact and reliable. Tankers carried grease guns into combat through Desert Storm in 1991. Number 18. The M1 bazooka was developed in 1942 as an infantry anti-tank weapon. The name came from a musical instrument used by comedian Bob Burns. The bazooka fired a 2.36-inch rocket that could penetrate 4 inches of armor at 150 yards. German tanks had 3 to 5 inches of frontal armor. The bazooka could kill them from the side or rear, but was marginal against frontal armor. Number 19. On the 11th of July 1943, near Gela, Sicily, Sergeant Audie Murphy used a bazooka to disable a German tank at 50 yards. He was 18 years old, weighed 110 pounds, and had been in combat for 3 days. Over the next 2 years, Murphy became America's most decorated soldier with 33 medals, including the Medal of Honor. He killed 240 enemy soldiers. He survived the war, became a movie star, suffered severe PTSD, and died in a plane crash in 1971 at age 45. Number 20. The Germans captured American bazookas in North Africa in 1942 and copied the design. The result was the Panzerschreck, a larger, more powerful version that fired an 88mm rocket. German engineers improved on the American design and used it against American tanks. Technology transfer went both ways. Number 21. The M2 60mm mortar was carried by every infantry company. 3 men operated it: gunner, assistant gunner, and ammunition bearer. It fired 18 to 20 rounds per minute to a range of 1,800 yards. Mortars provided immediate fire support without calling for artillery. They could drop rounds on targets hidden behind ridges, buildings, or trees. Infantry commanders called mortars the platoon commander's artillery. Number 22. The M1 81mm mortar was heavier and longer ranged, 3,000 yards. Battalion mortar platoons used them to support multiple companies simultaneously. On the 20th of December 1944, during the Battle of the Bulge, 81mm mortar crews from the 101st Airborne fired over 10,000 rounds in 24 hours defending Bastogne. The barrels glowed red. Crews wore gloves to handle them. Number 23. The M2 flamethrower had a range of 40 yards and burned for 10 seconds. It weighed 70 pounds fully loaded. Flamethrower operators had the highest casualty rate in the infantry. Japanese soldiers targeted them first. Marine Private Richard Klatt carried a flamethrower on Iwo Jima and survived 30 days of combat. He said, "You learn not to think about it. You aim, pull the trigger, move. If you think about what you're doing, you freeze." Number 24. The M4 Sherman tank weighed 33 tons, had a crew of 5, mounted a 75mm gun, and had a top speed of 30 miles per hour. It was reliable, easy to maintain, and produced in massive quantities. 49,234 Shermans were built between 1,942 and 1,945. By comparison, Germany built 6,000 Panther tanks and 1,347 Tiger tanks total. Number 25. The Sherman was inferior to German tanks in direct combat. The Panther's 75mm gun could penetrate a Sherman's frontal armour at 2,000 yards. The Sherman's 75mm gun could penetrate a Panther's frontal armour at 200 yards, maybe. American tankers knew this. They fought anyway because they had no choice. Number 26. The kill-loss ratio in tank combat favoured the Germans. 1 Panther could destroy 3 to 4 Shermans before being knocked out. 1 Tiger could destroy 5 to 6. American tankers developed tactics to compensate: numerical superiority, combined arms with infantry and artillery, air support, and attacking from multiple directions simultaneously. They accepted losses to achieve objectives. Number 27. Staff Sergeant Lafayette. War Daddy Poole commanded an M4 Sherman named In the Mood in the 3rd Armoured Division. Between June and September 1944, his crew destroyed 258 enemy vehicles, including 12 tanks. Poole was wounded 3 times and continued fighting. On the 19th of September 1944, his tank hit a mine. Poole lost a leg. He survived the war, lived until 1991, and died at age 71. Number 28. The Sherman's reputation for catching fire earned it the nickname Ronson, after the cigarette lighter that advertised lights the first time, every time. German tankers called them Tommy cookers. The early Sherman's gasoline engine and unprotected ammunition storage made fires common. Wet stowage, storing ammo in water-jacketed racks, reduced fire risk by 60% after 1944. Number 29. Tanker Private Horace Woodring served in the 2nd Armoured Division. On the 8th of August 1944, near Mortain, France, his Sherman was hit by an 88mm round that killed the gunner and loader instantly. Woodring was blown out of the turret, suffered burns and shrapnel wounds, and watched his tank burn with 2 crew members still inside. He spent 6 months in hospitals, was awarded the Purple Heart, and never spoke about it until he was 80 years old. Number 30. The M4A 3E8 Sherman Easy 8 featured improved suspension, wider tracks, better armour, and a high-velocity 76mm gun that could penetrate Panther armour at 1,000 yards. Easy 8s entered service in late 1944. They were more evenly matched against German tanks. Tankers who'd fought in 75mm Shermans and upgraded to Easy 8s said it was like getting a completely different tank. Number 31. The M26 Pershing heavy tank mounted a 90mm gun, had 4 inches of frontal armour and weighed 46 tons. It could fight Panthers and Tigers on equal terms. Only 20 Pershings reached Europe before the war ended in May 1945. They arrived too late to change the outcome, but proved American industry could build heavy tanks when needed. Number 32. Sergeant Nicholas Mashlonik commanded a Pershing that engaged a Panther in Cologne, Germany, on the 6th of March 1945. The duel was filmed by a cameraman with the 3rd Armoured Division. The footage shows the Panther rounding a corner, firing and missing, then being hit 3 times by Mashlonik's 90mm gun. The Panther burned. The engagement lasted 30 seconds. Mashlonik survived the war. Number 33. The M3 Stuart light tank was fast, reliable and useless against German tanks by 1943. Its 37mm gun couldn't penetrate Panzer IV armour, much less Panthers or Tigers. Stuarts were relegated to reconnaissance and infantry support. Crews called them honey for their smooth ride. Japanese tanks in the Pacific were lighter and more vulnerable. In the Pacific, Stuarts remained effective throughout the war. Number 34. The M5 half-track was an armoured personnel carrier, a truck with tracks instead of rear wheels and an armoured body. It carried 12 infantrymen plus crew, had a .50 caliber machine gun, and could traverse rough terrain. Over 41,000 were built. They provided mobility and protection, but were vulnerable to mines, artillery and anti-tank weapons. Number 35. On 17 September 1944, during Operation Market Garden, 2nd Lieutenant John S. Thompson's half-track was hit by German fire while crossing a bridge at Nijmegen, Netherlands. The vehicle caught fire. Thompson pulled 3 wounded soldiers from the burning half-track, returned twice more to retrieve weapons and ammunition, then manned the .50 caliber machine gun to cover his squad's withdrawal. He received the Medal of Honor and survived the war. Number 36. The M8 Greyhound armoured car was wheeled, lightly armoured and armed with a 37mm gun. It was fast, 55 miles per hour on roads, and used for reconnaissance. Armoured cavalry units screened ahead of advancing columns, identified enemy positions and radioed intelligence back. Greyhounds avoided combat when possible. Speed was their armour. Number 37. On the 18th of December 1944, during the Battle of the Bulge, an M8 Greyhound crew from the 87th Cavalry Reconnaissance Squadron encountered a Tiger II tank, the heaviest tank in the war at 70 tons. The Greyhound fired 3 37mm rounds. Impossibly, one penetrated the Tiger's rear armour through a ventilation grill and detonated the ammunition. The Tiger exploded. The Greyhound crew fled before realizing what they'd done. The destroyed Tiger was found weeks later. Number 38. The M3 Lee tank was an emergency design produced before the Sherman was ready. It mounted a 75mm gun in a hull sponson and a 37mm gun in a rotating turret. The design was awkward. The 75mm couldn't elevate or traverse independently. British crews called it a mobile pillbox. Over 6,000 were built, most were sent to the Soviet Union or Britain. Few American crews used them after 1942. Number 39. The M7 Priest self-propelled artillery mounted a 105mm howitzer on a modified Sherman chassis. It provided mobile artillery support, keeping pace with advancing armour. The 105mm could fire 4 to 8 rounds per minute to a range of 12,000 yards. Priests were used from North Africa through Germany. British forces used them extensively. Though they complained about the name, British crews preferred not to fight in vehicles with religious connotations. Number 40. The M12 gun motor carriage mounted a 155mm gun on a modified tank chassis. It fired 95-pound shells to 16,000 yards. M12s were used for long-range bombardment and destroying fortifications. Only 100 were built, but they served throughout Europe. One M12 battery destroyed 64 German pillboxes during the fighting in the Siegfried Line in October 1944. Number 41. The M10 tank destroyer mounted a 3-inch (76 mm) gun on a modified Sherman chassis with an open-topped turret. Tank destroyers were designed to ambush enemy armour, not slug it out in direct combat. The doctrine was shoot and scoot, fire, reposition, fire again. Over 6,400 M10s were built. They were effective against German tanks at medium range, but vulnerable due to the open turret. Number 42. The M18 Hellcat was the fastest armoured vehicle of the war, 55 miles per hour, top speed. It mounted a 76mm gun and had light armour. Hellcat crews used speed and mobility to flank German tanks and attack from unexpected directions. On December 19–20, 1944, a single Hellcat from the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion destroyed 7 German tanks and 5 half-tracks near Bastogne. Number 43. The M36 Jackson mounted a 90mm gun, the same caliber as the Pershing tank, on a tank destroyer chassis. It entered service in mid-1944 and could penetrate any German tank at combat ranges. M36S proved that American industry could upgun existing platforms faster than designing new vehicles. Over 2,300 were built by war's end. Number 44. American artillery doctrine emphasized speed, accuracy, and overwhelming firepower. Forward observers called for fire support, and shells arrived in minutes. The standard artillery piece was the M2A 105mm howitzer. It weighed 4,900 pounds, could be towed by a truck or half-track, and fired 3 to 8 rounds per minute to 12,000 yards. Number 45. The M1 155mm howitzer. Long Tom fired 95-pound shells to 25,000 yards. It required a tractor to move and took 15 minutes to emplace. Long Toms provided deep fire support, targeting enemy artillery, supply depots and troop concentrations miles behind front lines. German soldiers feared American artillery more than any other weapon. Number 46. Time-on-target fire missions massed artillery from multiple batteries to land shells on a target simultaneously. Forward observers calculated flight times, and batteries fired at staggered intervals. The result was dozens of shells arriving within seconds, giving no warning and no time to take cover. German officers interrogated after the war said time-on-target missions were the most demoralizing American tactic. Number 47. American artillery consumed ammunition at rates that stunned other armies. During the Battle of the Bulge, U.S. artillery fired 1 million shells in December 1944 alone. Daily expenditures of 5,000 to 10,000 rounds per division were common. German artillery rationed ammunition. American artillery never ran short. Production and logistics made it possible. Number 48. The M1 240mm howitzer Black Dragon was the largest field artillery piece the US deployed in Europe. It fired 360-pound shells to 25,000 yards. Each howitzer required a custom firing platform and a crane to load ammunition. Only 315 were built. They were used for destroying fortifications, bridges and deeply buried bunkers. The concussion from firing shattered windows a mile away. Number 49. The proximity fuse, developed by Section T of the National Defense Research Committee, used a miniature radar to detonate shells in mid-air above the target. Airbursts spread shrapnel over a wider area than ground impacts. Proximity fuses turned anti-aircraft guns deadly effective and made artillery far more lethal. The technology was so secret that proximity-fused shells were initially forbidden over land to prevent Germans capturing duds and copying the design. Number 50. On the 24th of December 1944, Christmas Eve, German aircraft attacked Bastogne. American anti-aircraft batteries using proximity-fused 90mm rounds shot down 23 of 24 aircraft. The remaining plane fled. German air attacks on Bastogne stopped. Forward observers reported German officers examining wreckage of downed aircraft, trying to understand how American anti-aircraft fire was so accurate. Number 51. The Willys MB Jeep was designed in 1940, entered production in 1941, and over 640,000 were built by war's end. Jeeps were used for reconnaissance, command and control, transporting wounded, mounting machine guns, towing artillery, and carrying supplies. General Eisenhower called the Jeep the Dakota transport, the bazooka, and the atom bomb the four tools that won the war. Number 52. Jeeps were shipped worldwide, to Britain, the Soviet Union, China, and every theatre where Americans fought. The Soviets received 52,000 Jeeps under Lend-Lease. Soviet Marshal Georgy Zhukov said, "Without American trucks, we would have had nothing to pull our artillery with. Jeeps provided mobility the Red Army desperately needed." Number 50. 3. The GMC CCKW 2.5-ton truck, the Deuce and a Half, was the workhorse of American logistics. Over 560,000 were built. They hauled ammunition, food, fuel, troops and supplies across North Africa, Europe and the Pacific. During the Red Ball Express, truck convoys delivered 12,500 tons of supplies daily to Patton's advancing Third Army in August-September 1944. Number 54. Truck driver Private George Watson was driving a convoy through the Remagen Bridge in Germany on the 7th of March 1945, when German artillery destroyed the truck ahead of him. Watson pulled wounded soldiers from burning vehicles under continuing fire, made multiple trips to evacuate casualties, and refused to leave until all wounded were clear. He received the Silver Star and survived the war. Number 55. The M29 Weasel was a tracked cargo carrier designed for snow operations. It was lightly armoured, amphibious, and could traverse terrain impassable to wheeled vehicles. Weasels were used in the Ardennes during the Battle of the Bulge, in Italy's mountains, and in the Pacific's jungles. Only 15,000 were built, but they proved invaluable in specialised roles. Number 56. The DUKW Duck was an amphibious truck that could operate on land or water. It was designed for ship-to-shore cargo transport during amphibious invasions. DUKWs landed supplies directly on beaches, eliminating the need for port facilities. Over 21,000 were built. They were used at Normandy, Sicily and Pacific Islands. Some DUKWs remain in tourist service today, 80 years later. Number 57. The Landing Vehicle Tracked, LVT, Amtrak, was an armoured amphibious vehicle designed for assaulting fortified beaches. It could cross reefs and deliver troops directly to the beach. Marines used LVTs at Tarawa, Saipan, Iwo Jima and Okinawa. The Pacific Island hopping campaign would have been impossible without amphibious vehicles. Number 58. On the 20th of November 1943, during the assault on Tarawa, LVT driver Private First Class Robert A. Owens's vehicle was hit by Japanese fire while approaching the beach. The LVT caught fire. Owens helped 3 wounded Marines out of the vehicle, returned to retrieve a machine gun, and used it to suppress Japanese positions while other LVTs landed. He was killed by a sniper. He received the Medal of Honor posthumously. Number 59. The SCR-300 walkie-talkie radio weighed 32 pounds and allowed squad-level voice communication over 3 to 5 miles. Forward observers used SCR 300 seconds to call artillery fire. Infantry commanders coordinated assaults. Tank crews communicated with supporting infantry. Radio-equipped units moved faster and fought more effectively than units relying on runners or wire communications. Number 60. The M209 cipher machine encrypted messages using rotors and mechanical cams. It was portable, rugged and secure against tactical-level interception. Over 140,000 were produced. German intelligence broke some M209 messages, but not enough to gain strategic advantage. American code-breaking of German and Japanese codes provided far greater intelligence value than Axis code-breaking of American systems. Number 61. The Norden bombsight was a mechanical computer that calculated bomb release points, accounting for altitude, airspeed, wind and target motion. It was classified top secret. Bombardiers swore oaths not to reveal its existence. Stories circulated that it could drop a bomb into a pickle barrel from 20,000 feet. Reality was less impressive. Bombing accuracy averaged 1,200 feet from the aim point. The Norden was good but not miraculous. Number 62. Bombardier Captain Robert Morgan flew 25 missions in the B-17 Memphis Belle using a Norden bomb sight. He later said, "The Bombardier's job was to get the bombs close. If you hit within 1,000 feet of the target, you'd done well. Precision bombing was propaganda. We saturated target areas. Strategic bombing relied on mass and repetition, not precision." Number 63. The atomic bomb, Little Boy, dropped on Hiroshima, used a simple ballistic trajectory, not a bomb sight. The bomb was aimed visually at the T-shaped Aoi Bridge. It detonated 800 feet southeast of the aim point, nearly perfect. The atomic bomb, Fat Man, dropped on Nagasaki, was aimed at the Mitsubishi Steelworks, but detonated 1.5 miles north due to clouds obscuring the target. Accuracy varied. Number 64. The B-29 Superfortress cost $639,000 per aircraft, equivalent to $11 million today. The entire Manhattan project cost $2 billion. The B-29 program cost $3 billion, more than the atomic bomb. The B-29 was the most expensive weapons program of World War II. Number 65. B-29 development was plagued by engine fires. The Wright R3000 350 engine overheated and caught fire during testing. 18 B-29 seconds crashed during development. On der 18. Februar 1943, Testpilot Eddie Allen's B-29 suffered engine fire during a test flight over Seattle. Allen attempted an emergency landing but crashed into a meatpacking plant. Allen and his 10-man crew died, along with 20 factory workers on the ground. Development continued. Number 66. By 1945, B-29 engine problems were mostly resolved through redesigned cowlings, better oil cooling, and pilot training. The Superfortress became reliable enough for 1,500-mile missions over the Pacific. On March 9 to 10, 1,945, 334 B-29 seconds firebombed Tokyo, destroying 16 square miles and killing 100,000 people. 14 B-29 seconds were lost, a 4% loss rate, acceptable by strategic bombing standards. Number 67. The B-24 Liberator featured the Davis wing, a long, thin, high aspect ratio design that provided excellent lift and range but was vulnerable to battle damage. A single flak hit could sever a wing spar. B-24 seconds broke apart in mid-air more frequently than B-17 seconds. Crews called them flying coffins. Despite this, the B-24's longer range made it essential for Pacific operations where distances exceeded European theatre missions. Number 68. The P-61 Black Widow night fighter used SCR-720 airborne radar to find targets in darkness. Radar operator and pilot worked together. The operator guided the pilot toward the target, and the pilot completed the intercept visually or with radar assistance. P-61 crews shot down German and Japanese aircraft that thought themselves safe under cover of night. Number 69. The Mark 13 torpedo, used by U.S. Navy torpedo bombers, was plagued by reliability problems through 1,943. Torpedoes ran too deep, exploded prematurely, or failed to detonate. Submariners and aviators risked their lives delivering weapons that didn't work. By 1944, modifications improved reliability to 70%. By 1945, Mark 13 torpedoes functioned as designed. 2 years of combat were fought with defective weapons. Number 70. The Mark 14 submarine torpedo had similar problems: magnetic detonators that triggered prematurely or not at all, depth-keeping mechanisms that ran too deep, and contact detonators that didn't fire on direct hits. Submarine commanders fired multiple torpedoes at point-blank range and watched them fail. It took until September 1943 for the Bureau of Ordnance to acknowledge and fix the problems. Number 71. Submarine Commander Dudley Mushmorton attacked Japanese shipping in 1943 using defective Mark 14 torpedoes. Despite the malfunctions, his submarine USS Wahoo sank 20 Japanese ships. On the 11th of October 1943, Wahoo was sunk by Japanese aircraft in the La Perouse Strait. All 80 crew members died, including Morton. Had his torpedoes worked properly, he might have sunk 30 to 40 ships before being lost. Number 72. American industry produced 297,000 aircraft, 86,000 tanks, 120,000 artillery pieces, 2.4 million trucks, 12 million rifles, 41 billion rounds of ammunition, and 2.6 million machine guns between 1940 and 1945. Production peaked in 1943 to 1944 when American factories outproduced all Axis nations combined. Number 73. The Ford Willow Run plant produced one B-24 Liberator every 63 minutes at peak production in 1944. The facility covered 3.5 million square feet, 67 acres under one roof. Workers assembled aircraft on a moving production line, the same method Ford used for automobiles. Charles Lindbergh visited in 1942 and said, "I don't believe it, it can't be done." It was done. Willow Run built 8,685 B-24 seconds, number 74. Women made up 65% of the workforce at Willow Run by 1944. Rosie the Riveter was based on Rose Will Monroe, a riveter at Willow Run who appeared in promotional films. She built B-24 seconds, drove rivets, and assembled fuselages. After the war, she drove a taxi and founded a construction company. She died in 1997 at age 77. Number 75. The Kaiser Richmond shipyards built Liberty ships, cargo vessels, in an average of 42 days from keel laying to launch. The record was the SS Robert E. Peary, built in 4 days, 15 hours, 29 minutes, in November 1942, over 2,700 over CBO mate. Liberty ships were built during the war. They were slow, ugly and welded instead of riveted, quick to build, cheap to replace and good enough to win. Number 76. The M4 Sherman tank's final drive, engine and transmission could be removed and replaced in 6 to 8 hours using standard tools. The Panther tank required 2 to 3 days and specialized equipment. Sherman reliability and maintainability mattered more than armor thickness. A tank in the repair depot didn't contribute to the battle regardless of how well designed it was. Number 77. American logistics doctrine emphasized forward supply. Supply dumps were established close to front lines. Fuel, ammunition, and spare parts moved forward continuously. Tank units received replacement vehicles, aircraft squadrons received replacement planes, and infantry divisions received replacement soldiers. German units made do with what they had because Germany's logistics couldn't sustain forward momentum. Number 78. The Red Ball Express operated from August 25 to the 16th of November 1944, supplying Patton's Third Army as it raced across France. Truck convoys drove one-way loops on dedicated roads, delivering supplies 24 hours per day. Over 6,000 trucks carried 12,500 tons daily. Drivers worked 20-hour shifts. 75% of Red Bull drivers were African-American soldiers serving in segregated units. They kept the advance moving. Number 79. Private First Class Robert H. Brooks was the first American soldier killed in the European theatre of operations. He died on the 17th of August 1942 during a training accident in Northern Ireland. His death preceded the first American combat action in Europe by 3 months. Training accidents killed thousands throughout the war: aircraft crashes, vehicle accidents, weapon malfunctions and drownings. They died before seeing combat. Number 80. The M1 helmet consisted of a steel shell and a plastic liner. The steel shell could stop pistol rounds and shrapnel. Rifle rounds punched through. Soldiers used helmets as seats, shovels, wash basins and cooking pots. The helmet's shape, wider brim in front and back than on sides, deflected shrapnel downward away from shoulders. Over 22 million were produced. Number 81. The Parsons jacket, a rubberized canvas jacket developed for Navy crews, became standard issue for sailors. It was water-resistant, fire-resistant, and could keep a man afloat for hours. Thousands of sailors survived sinkings by inflating their Parsons jackets. The jacket was uncomfortable, smelled of rubber, and saved lives. Sailors wore them in combat despite the discomfort. Number 82. K-rations were individual daily rations containing 3 boxed meals, breakfast, lunch and dinner. Each meal included canned meat, crackers, candy, gum and cigarettes. The rations provided 3,000 calories per day. Soldiers universally despised K-rations. They complained about the taste, texture and monotony. Nutritionally adequate, culinarily appalling, K-rations kept soldiers fed under conditions where hot meals were impossible. Number 83. C-rations were canned meals designed for individual consumption. Each can contain meat and vegetables, beef stew, meat and beans, ham and lima beans. Soldiers called ham and lima beans ham and mother's because they were universally detested. C-rations could be eaten cold or heated. Most soldiers heated them. The cans doubled as cooking pots, cups and makeshift hand warmers. Number 84. Blood plasma saved thousands of lives. Dr. Charles Drew developed techniques for separating, storing and shipping blood plasma. Plasma could be stored for months and reconstituted with water when needed. The Red Cross collected blood from civilian donors. Plasma was shipped to field hospitals worldwide. Wounded soldiers received plasma transfusions minutes after being injured. Drew was African American. His research saved lives regardless of race. He died in 1950 at age 45 after a car accident. Number 85. Penicillin mass. Production began in 1942. By 1944, pharmaceutical companies produced 2.3 million doses per month. Wounded soldiers received penicillin injections, dramatically reducing infection rates. Injuries that caused death by infection in World War I were survivable in World War II if treated with penicillin. The survival rate for wounded American soldiers in World War II exceeded 50%, double the rate from World War I. Number 86. The M1936 musette bag was a canvas shoulder bag carried by infantry. Soldiers packed extra ammunition, rations, personal items, and whatever they couldn't carry on their belts or backs. Each soldier customized their load. Heavy loads caused back problems. Light loads left soldiers under-equipped. Balance was personal and learned through experience. Number 87. The M1942 paratrooper uniform featured large pockets, reinforced knees and elbows, and an integrated harness for parachute attachment. Paratroopers jumped carrying 80 to 120 pounds of equipment: rifle, ammunition, grenades, rations, water, entrenching tool, and sometimes a mortar tube or machine gun. Landing with that weight caused injuries. Paratroopers accepted the risk because they had no alternative. Number 88. The M1943 field jacket was introduced late in the war. It was windproof, water-resistant and warmer than earlier uniforms. It had large pockets for maps, rations and ammunition. Soldiers who received M1943 uniforms in late 1944 and 1945 considered them vastly superior to earlier uniforms. Soldiers still wearing 1941 Patton uniforms in early 1945 envied those with newer gear. Number 89. The P-38 can opener, officially the US Army pocket can opener, was 1.5 inches long and opened C-ration cans. It was issued with rations and small enough to carry on a keychain. Over 8 million were produced. Veterans kept them after the war. P-38 seconds are still manufactured today and used by hikers, campers and anyone who values simple, reliable tools. Number 90. The Weasel, Jeep and Sherman were shipped to the Soviet Union under Lend-Lease. The Soviets received 409,000 526 trucks, 12,000 armoured vehicles, 11,400 aircraft and 400,000 tons of aluminum. American supplies didn't win the Eastern Front, Soviet soldiers did, but American logistics enabled Soviet offensives. Stalin acknowledged this at Tehran in 1943, saying the Soviets could not have sustained their advances without American trucks. Number 91. Lend-Lease shipments to the Soviet Union travelled 3 routes: the Arctic convoys through Murmansk, the Persian corridor through Iran, and the Pacific route through Vladivostok. Arctic convoys faced U-boats, aircraft and winter storms. Ships sank, sailors froze. Convoys continued because the Soviets needed the supplies and the Allies needed the Soviets to keep fighting. Number 92. American weapons captured by Germans were evaluated, sometimes used, and occasionally copied. German soldiers preferred American rations to their own. Captured jeeps were prized for their Proust. Reliability. Shermans were used when fuel was available. Weapons flowed both directions. Americans used captured German weapons when ammunition was plentiful or American weapons unavailable. Number 93. The bazooka, Garand and proximity fuse represented American advantages. Combined research and industrial capacity translated into deployed technology faster than other nations. Germany developed advanced prototypes that never reached production. America fielded adequate equipment in overwhelming quantities. Mass production was strategic advantage. Number 94. Post-war American weapons dominated global arsenals. The M1 Garand served through Korea. The M2, 50-caliber machine gun, serves today. The M1000, 911 pistol, remained in service until 1985. Sherman tanks fought in Israeli, Pakistani and South American armies into the 1970 seconds. C-47 transports flew commercially until the 1990 seconds. American weapons outlasted the war by decades. Number 95. Veteran returning home brought weapons as souvenirs. Pistols, rifles, helmets, flags. Some were legal war trophies. Many were illegal but unchecked. Japanese swords, German Lugers and Nazi flags filled attics and basements. Families discovered them after veterans died. Museums acquired them. Some remain in private collections. They're artifacts now, reminders of a war most Americans experienced only through stories. Number 96. Recreations and reenactments keep the weapons alive in public memory. Tanks, fire blanks at air shows. Aircraft fly at commemorations. Museums let visitors touch a Garand, sit in a Sherman, or walk through a B-17. The machinery is preserved, maintained and demonstrated so generations who never heard these weapons in anger understand what they sounded like. Number 97. The last Sherman in US. Military service was retired in 1957. The last active Sherman worldwide rolled in Chile until 1989, 44 years after Germany surrendered. B-17 seconds dropped fire retardant on forest fires until the 1970 seconds. C-47 seconds flew cargo routes into the 2000s. American weapons built for one war served through multiple conflicts and peacetime roles, a testament to their utility and durability. Number 98. Scrap drives after the war melted down millions of rifles, thousands of tanks and hundreds of aircraft. Metal was recycled into cars, refrigerators and building materials. The weapons that won the war became the infrastructure of peace. Swords to plowshares, literally. Only a fraction survived in museums or private collections. Number 99. The cost of American military production between 1940 to 1945 totaled $185 billion, equivalent to $2.8 trillion today. The United States spent more on weapons production than any nation in history. That spending employed 17 million workers, ended the Great Depression, and equipped the armies that defeated fascism. Economic mobilization was as decisive as battlefield tactics. Number 100. American weapons were imperfect. Bazookas couldn't reliably penetrate heavy tanks. Torpedoes didn't work for 2 years. Shermans burned. K rations tasted terrible. But the weapons arrived in sufficient quantities, were maintained adequately, and were used by soldiers willing to fight with what they had rather than what they wished they had. Perfection wasn't necessary. Good enough in overwhelming quantities won. Number 101. From the bayonet on a Garand rifle to the atomic bomb in a B-29's bay, American weapons spanned the technological spectrum, simple and complex, crude and sophisticated, mass-produced and hand-fitted. Over 16 million Americans served between 1941 and 1945. They carried these weapons into deserts, jungles, mountains and cities, from Casablanca to Berlin, from Guadalcanal to Tokyo. Some weapons failed. Some soldiers died using them. But enough worked well enough, and enough soldiers survived using them, that by August 1945 the weapons fell silent, the factories stopped production, and the soldiers came home. The rifles hang on museum walls now, the tanks rust in desert storage yards, and the bombers crouch in hangar museums, their propellers still, their guns empty, their wars over. Their metal and wood and rubber and glass, materials given purpose by the hands that held them, and the resolve to use them when the world needed weapons, soldiers and the will to fight.